Hi guys, it's Mrs. Campbell. This is really weird talking to you this way, but I wanted to let you guys know how much I miss seeing all of you. That's been one of the hardest things, trying to get through this, but I have faith that we're going to be back together soon and our lives will go back to normal. But in the meantime, know how much I miss seeing each and every one of you every day. And that has been one of the hardest things that I've had to do during this, because I do really look forward to seeing all of you every single day. But with that being said, I am here and I'm going to read a short story to you. It's called The Scholarship Jacket. Couple things I'm going to go over with you before I read the story. And just to give you a little background, go over the meaning of some words. Talk about some things we were working on. So that we don't get too rusty, so that when we do go back to school, which hopefully will be soon, we'll be able to pick up where we left off. When I'm done reading, I'm going to share with you my email address because I would love to hear from you. A couple things, if you just want to write me a little note or some questions you want to answer, I have them up behind me. I'll share them with you. If that doesn't work, maybe I'll create a remind just for the 6th grade class. And that way, that's a safe way to text each other. But in the meantime, let's get started with the story. And it is a story and it's called The Scholarship Jacket. I'm going to be reading it from my iPad, guys. And I have to put on my glasses so I can see. You guys all know that. I want to give you a little bit of background. So this story takes place in a small town in Texas. Our main character, or our protagonist, her name's Marta, which is a Hispanic way of saying Martha. So different times throughout the story, you will hear her being called Marta by her family, and then at school, she's called Martha. So it's the same person. It's just different people say her name differently. So in the story, she is the valedictorian, and a valedictorian is a student who achieves the highest grade in a graduating class during all of their years at school. So Marta is in 8th grade and she's the valedictorian of her 8th grade graduating class. All right. A couple other vocabulary words I just want to go over with you so you know what they mean when we come across them. Eavesdrop, I think you all know what that means. That means to listen secretly to a private conversation. Vile. Vile is very bad, it's unpleasant, and it's foul. A lot of times they talk about it with a vile taste or a vile odor. That will be in the story. Policy, that's a guideline for actions or decisions. Coincidence, and that's a situation in which two or more events that seem related accidentally occur at the same time. So there are just a couple vocabulary words. As we come across them, if I think of it, and I'm making it up as I go, guys, so just bear with me. This is something new to all of us. If I could remember when I come across them, I'll reiterate what they mean. As I'm reading the story, think about the conflict in the story. What's the major conflict? Who's it between? Is it between a character and themselves? Is it between opposing forces? Just think about it. Think about what the resolution is, all right? Even as I'm reading, in your head, make some predictions. Think about what might happen next in the plot of the story, okay? So I'm going to start reading you The Scholarship Jacket, and it's actually by somebody named Marta, all right? Marta Salinas. The small Texas school that I attended carried a tradition every year during the 8th grade graduation. A beautiful gold and green jacket, the school colors, was awarded to the class valedictorian. Remember we went over that word? The student who had maintained the highest grades for 8 years. The scholarship jacket had a big gold S on the left front side, and the winner's name was written in gold letters on the pocket. My older sister Rosie had won the jacket a few years back, and I fully expected to win also. I was 14 and in the 8th grade. I had been a straight A student since the 1st grade, and the last year I had looked forward to owning that jacket. My father was a farm laborer who couldn't earn enough money to feed 8 children. So when I was 6, I was given to my grandparents to raise. We couldn't participate in sports at school because of registration fees, uniform costs, and trips out of town. So even though we were quite agile and athletic, there would never be a sports team jacket for us. This one, the scholarship jacket, was our only chance. So there's a little bit of conflict right there, right? What struggle does Marta's family face? They faced more than one already in the story. So she was actually given to her grandparents to raise because her parents couldn't afford to raise all 8 of their kids. And while I'm sure she was cared for quite well by her grandparents, they didn't have the money for her to do extra things. So her only opportunity to get a special jacket would be for being the valedictorian. I'm going to keep going with the story. In May, close to graduation, spring fever struck, and no one paid any attention in class. Instead, we all stared out the windows and at each other, wanting to speed up the last few weeks of school. I despaired every minute I looked into the mirror. Pencil thin, not a curve anywhere, and I was called beanpole and string bean, and I knew that's what I looked like. Flat chest, no hips, and a brain, that's what I had. That really isn't much for a 14-year-old to work with, I thought, as I absentmindedly wandered from my history class to the gym. Another hour of sweating and basketball and displaying my toothpick legs was coming up. Then I remembered my PE shorts were still in a bag under my desk where I had forgotten them. I had to walk all the way back and get them. Coach Thompson was a real bear if anyone wasn't dressed for PE. She said I was a good forward, and once she even tried to talk Grandma into letting me join the team. Grandma, of course, said no. I was almost back at my classroom's door when I heard angry voices and arguing. I stopped. I didn't mean to eavesdrop. There's the word. I just hesitated, not knowing what to do. I needed those shorts, and I was going to be late, but I didn't want to interrupt an argument between my teachers. I recognized the voices, Mr. Schmidt, my history teacher, and Mr. Boone, my math teacher. They seemed to be arguing about me. I couldn't believe it. I still remember the shock that rooted me flat against the wall, as if I were trying to blend in with the graffiti written there. I refuse to do it. I don't care who her father is. Her grades don't even begin to compare to Martha's. I won't lie or falsify records. Martha has a straight A+ average, and you know it. That was Mr. Schmidt, and he sounded quite angry. Mr. Boone's voice sounded calm and quiet. Look, Joanne's father is not only on the board, he owns the only store in town. We could say it was a close tie, and the pounding in my ears drowned out the rest of the words. Only a word here and there filtered through. Martha is Mexican. Resign. Won't do it. Mr. Schmidt came rushing out, and luckily for me, he went down the opposite way toward the auditorium so he didn't see me. Shaking, I waited a few minutes and then went in, grabbed my bag, and fled from the room. Wow, there's some figurative language before I go on. I just want to go over with you. I'm going to go scroll back up to where it was. I still couldn't believe it. I still remember the shock that rooted me against the wall as if I were trying to blend in with the graffiti written there. Okay, so think about it. She was rooted against the wall. What has big roots? Trees, right? And they usually don't move. So she was letting us know she was stuck against that wall. She couldn't move. She was rooted just like a tree is rooted into the ground. All right, I'm going to go on with the story. And right there, we also heard on that page about the different names. She was called Martha at school. Mr. Boone looked up when I came in, but didn't say anything. To this day, I don't remember if I got in trouble in PE for being late, or how I made it through the rest of the afternoon. I went home very sad and cried into my pillow that night so grandmother wouldn't hear me. It seemed a cruel coincidence that I had overheard that conversation. Okay, remember when 2 things happened? What happened? She forgot her gym shorts, so she had to go back. That conversation was taking place at the same time. The next day, when the principal called me into his office, I knew what it would be about. He looked uncomfortable and unhappy. I decided I wasn't going to going to make it any easier for him, so I looked him straight in the eye. He looked away and fidgeted with the papers on his desk. That meant he was playing with the papers on his desk. Martha, he said, there's been a change in policy this year regarding the scholarship jacket. As you know, it has always been free. He cleared his throat and continued. This year, the board decided to charge $15, which still won't cover the complete cost of the jacket. I stared at him in shock, and a small sound of dismay escaped my throat. I hadn't expected this. He still avoided looking in my eyes. So if you're unable to pay the $15 for the jacket, it will be given to the next one in line. Just real quick, dismay means to have a feeling of alarm or uneasiness, right? So Marta was in dismay. Standing with all the dignity I could muster, I said, I'll speak to my grandfather about it, sir, and let you know tomorrow. Muster means it's how somebody tries to gather all their dignity. They try to collect it. So she's trying to gather all her dignity that she has to respond to the principal. I cried on the way home from the bus stop. The dirt road was a quarter of a mile from the highway, so by the time I got home, my eyes were red and puffy. Where's Grandpa? I asked Grandma, looking down at the floor so she wouldn't ask me why I'd been crying. She was sewing on a quilt and didn't look up. I think he's out back working in the bean field. I went outside and looked out at the fields. There he was. I could see him walking between the rows, his body bent over the little plants, hoe in his hand. I walked slowly out to him, trying to think how I could best ask him for the money. There was a cool breeze blowing and the sweet smell of mesquite in the air, but I didn't appreciate it. I kicked at a dirt clod, so that's like a pile of dirt, and mesquite, that's a different smell that is associated with when things are burning. A lot of times in coals, they'll put the mesquite smell in. I wanted that jacket so much. It was more than just being a valedictorian and giving a little thank you speech for the jacket on graduation night. It represented 8 years of hard work and expectation. I knew I had to be honest with Grandpa. It was my only chance. He saw me and looked up. He waited for me to speak. I cleared my throat nervously and clasped my hand behind my back so he wouldn't see them shaking. Grandpa, I have a big favor to ask you, I said in Spanish, the only language he knew. He still waited silently. I tried again. Grandpa, this year the principal said the scholarship jacket is not going to be free. It's going to cost $15, and I have to take the money in tomorrow. Otherwise, it will be given to someone else. The last words came out in an eager rush. Grandpa straightened up tiredly and leaned his chin on the hoe handle. He looked out over the field that was filled with the tiny green bean plants. I waited, desperately hoping he'd say I could have the money. He turned to me and asked quietly, what does a scholarship jacket mean? I answered quickly, maybe there was a chance. It means you earned it by having the highest grades for 8 years, and that's why they're giving it to you. Too late, I realized the significance of my words. Grandpa knew that I understood. It was not a matter of money. It wasn't that. He went back to hoeing the weeds that sprung up between the delicate little bean plants. It was a time-consuming job. Sometimes the small shoots were right next to each other. Finally, he spoke again. Then if you pay for it, Marta, it's not a scholarship jacket, is it? Tell your principal I will not pay the $15. I walked back to the house and locked myself in the bathroom for a long time. I was angry with Grandfather, even though I knew he was right. I was angry with the board, whoever they were. Why did they have to change the rules just when it was my turn to win the jacket? It was a very sad and withdrawn girl who dragged into the principal's office the next day. This time, he did look me in the eyes. What did your grandfather say? I sat very straight in the chair. He said to tell you he won't pay the $15. The principal muttered something I couldn't understand under his breath and walked over to the window. He stood looking out at something outside. He looked bigger than usual when he stood up. He was a tall, gaunt man with gray hair. I watched the back of his head while I waited for him to speak. Someone who's gaunt is a person who is thin and bony. So the principal was thin and bony. Finally, he said, "Why? Your grandfather has the money. Doesn't he own a small farm?" I looked at him, forcing my eyes to stay dry. He said if I had to pay for it, then it wouldn't be a scholarship jacket. I said and stood up to leave. "I guess you'll just have to give it to Joanne." I hadn't meant to say that. It just slipped out. I was almost to the door when he stopped me. "Martha, wait." I turned and I looked at him waiting. What did he want now? I could feel my heart pounding. Something bitter and vile tasting was coming up in my mouth. I was afraid I was going to be sick. I didn't need any sympathy speeches. I sighed loudly and went back to his big desk. He looked at me, biting his lip, as if thinking, "Okay, we'll make an exception in your case. I'll tell the board. You'll get your jacket." I could hardly believe it. I spoke in a trembling rush. "Oh, thank you, sir." Suddenly I felt great. I didn't know about adrenaline back in those days, but I knew something was pumping through me and making me feel as tall as the sky. I wanted to yell, jump, run the mile, do something. I ran out so I could cry in the hall where there was no one to see me. At the end of the day, Mr. Schmidt winked at me and said, "I hear you're getting your scholarship jacket this year." Just real quick, I want to go back. We all know what adrenaline means, right? It's a chemical that's released into the blood at times of stress or excitement, and it increases your energy. His face looked, this is back to after Mr. Schmidt said to Marta, "I hear you're getting a scholarship jacket this year." His face looked as happy and as innocent as a baby's, but I knew better. Without answering, I gave him a quick hug and ran to the bus. I cried on the walk home again, but this time because I was so happy. I couldn't wait to tell Grandpa and ran straight to the field. I joined him in the row where he was working, and without saying anything, I crouched down and started pulling up the weeds with my hands. Grandpa worked alongside me for a few minutes, but he didn't ask what happened. After a little pile of weeds between the rows, I stood up and I faced him. "The principal said he's making an exception for me, Grandpa, and I'm getting the jacket after all. That's after I told him what you said." Grandpa didn't say anything. He just gave me a pat on the shoulder and pulled out the crumpled red handkerchief that he always carried in his back pocket and wiped the sweat off his forehead. "Better go see if your grandma needs any help with supper." I gave him a big grin. He didn't fool me. I skipped and ran back to the house, whistling some silly tune. So there's our story, guys. Just think about, what was the conflict? Who was it between? There was a couple conflicts, weren't there? There was one definitely between Mr. Schmidt and Mr. Boone about Martha's right. She earned that scholarship. There was also conflict in Martha's family that we talked about at the beginning of the story. And she felt a little bit of conflict with herself, didn't she, when her grandfather said, "I'm not giving you the money." She really wanted it, but she knew it was right. It was a matter of principle. She had earned that jacket, not the other way around. So I want you to think about that, what we read, okay? And think about how Marta's grandfather helped her clarify her thoughts. She could see them clearly, couldn't she? She knew he was right at that time of conflict. So I'm going to be coming to you through YouTube. I'm going to pick out some different short stories just for you to think about, listen to. If you want to write about them, if you want to write about the conflict, if you want to write about how Marta would have felt, how you would have felt, if you were Marta, that would be great. I would love to see it. I'm going to share with you now my email address. Okay, it's an easy way to get a hold of me. I'll email you back. I really would love to hear from anybody who wants to reach out to me. And as I said, if that doesn't work and I don't hear from a lot of people, maybe we'll think about creating a reminding group for us. But I'm going to share with you, and if you don't, my email address, and if you don't want to write about the story, if you just want to write about how you're feeling, I'd love to hear that too. This is a great time to keep a journal. Try to write. Try to keep things normal as possible, guys. This is a time of uncharted waters. We've never had to do anything like this. And it gets to all of us. I had a bad day Wednesday, I'll tell you. I felt really down. Not being able to go out. Maybe it was the weather. If you think back, Wednesday wasn't a great weather day. So, it's getting to all of us. It's getting to all of us. You're not alone. So here's my email address. I'm not sure what I'm doing, guys, so I hope it comes back with when it plays for you. Chris, for me, it's showing backwards, so hopefully when you play it, it will be going the right way. So my email address is jecampbell@widener.edu, and that's my direct email. Some things if you want to journal, some things maybe you want to share. Okay, I'll share some of them with you. I'm going up and down because I'm trying to make sure you can see the paper. Some things I like about staying home. Well, right now I'm not liking a lot of things about staying home because, like I said, I miss seeing you. I miss being out. But Grace and Will are both home, so that's a plus. I get to see them every day. I'm sure they're not feeling the same way. I'm sure they're tired of being at home. I'm cooking a lot. Everybody's getting fresh meals every night. I'm even baking. With that being said, I'm sure we're all going to put on a little bit of weight. I am trying to exercise on a routine basis. So every other day, I'm going down to the basement and I'm working out to online videos because all the gyms are closed. And I'm trying to get outside and walk every day if the weather's permitting. Some days I'm even walking a couple times a day. Like the other day when the weather was nice, I made Grace and Will come out and go for a walk with me. And then when Mr. Campbell got home from work, we went for another walk. That's something I'm not liking right now. Mr. Campbell still has to work. He is considered essential personnel. He has to go to work so that we have the power and the electricity so that we can keep doing things while we're all staying at home. So, I'm glad that he has the ability to work. I'm a little scared because he's around other people. So, it's a double-edged sword, as they say. I'm glad that he's able to work, but I'm also really afraid. I don't want anything to happen to him. So that brings us to our next thing, some things I don't like about the social distancing. And that's one thing I don't like right now, and that scares me. I don't like not being able to see you guys. I don't like not being able to go to work and see all my friends at work. I don't like not being able to go out and see my friends. I don't like when I see my neighbors when we're out walking, we have to talk to each other from the other side of the street. I don't like not being able to go and check on my parents. I worry about them. As you guys know, my parents are both 84, and I worry about their health. Luckily, my sister lives with them, so she's there. She also has to work, though. She works in a hospital, and she's considered essential personnel. So I worry about her getting sick, and I worry about her bringing home something that could make my parents sick. So it's scary times, guys. It's really scary. So there's some of the things I don't like about social distancing. This one's really big for me. When this is all over, I'm looking forward to. So when this is all over, I'm looking forward to seeing all of you. And I'm looking forward to hugging each and every one of you. Whether you like it or not, I'm going to be giving you all a hug. And I hope you like it. When this is over, I'm looking forward to being able to go out, to go to work, to see you guys, to see my co-teachers. I'm looking forward to going over to my friend's house. We had to do book club last night through Zoom, which it's nice to be able to Zoom, but I miss seeing them. I miss being able to walk up my neighbor's driveway and have a conversation with them. I miss being able to go into my little town of Westchester and being able to go out to eat. I miss being able to see my parents. So some of the things. So when this is all done, I am going to look forward to going to seeing you, to see the other members of my family, to see my friends, to being able to go out to eat, to being able to go out in crowds. So if you would like to share these with me, keep a journal. Email me, guys. jecampbell@widener.edu. If that doesn't work, we'll figure out another way to keep in touch. Until then, stay well, stay safe. If you have to go outside, only if you have to, as soon as you get home, wash your hands, wipe everything down, okay? Try not to fight with whoever's in your house, siblings, cousins, parents, grandparents. This is a rough time for everybody. Cut everybody a little slack, okay, guys? If you're frustrated, send me an email saying what you're frustrated about. You can vent to me. I'm fine with that. I'm good with that, actually, and I'll respond back to you, okay? Take care. I miss you. I love all of you, and I can't wait until we can see each other again. Bye for now.